Thank you. Have there been that moment in your life when everything changed? For me, that happened last year when I was finishing off my medical training at Johns Hopkins. I met a little boy that changed my life. He traveled all the way from Albany with his family and trying to figure out what he had. The family had to try to figure out what his disease was. Halfway through the visit, he started to wince in pain, and he started to cry louder and louder. The mom tried to calm him down, but couldn't. And eventually the mom started to break out in tears herself, saying, I don't know what to do with him. I'm so sorry he's making such a fuss. Can you help us? I've taken him everywhere. For us, we were like, you don't have to apologize. We have no idea what you go through day to day. We'll try our best to help. Unfortunately, after our 2.5-hour visit with some of the world's best doctors at Johns Hopkins, there was no test clinically to determine what disease he had. Because the disease that he had was so rare that there's no federal funding, there's no researchers working on it. So he, like many other kids, wandered from hospital to hospital trying to look for a cure. That changed my life. What I did next was I called up all my smartest friends, most entrepreneurial friends, and we got together and tried to figure out how can we solve this problem. This was our solution. We founded an organization called Rare Genomics, where we were able to create individualized research projects for these kids with rare diseases and fund it in an innovative fashion. Let me tell you about one of our first kids. This is Robert. Robert was born a pretty healthy kid, grew very cute, as you can see here. But around when he was 1 year old, the mom noticed that he was feeding a little bit less brisk, he was not eating, then he was not moving his arms and legs, and over the course of 3 days, he became limp, was rushed to the hospital, and again, like the first little boy, they started doing tests, and more tests, and more tests. They saw over 20 different doctors, spent over millions of dollars, and 14 years later, they are still doing tests. Because the disease he has is so rare, there is no current clinical way to help him. And the amazing thing is, the current medical environment is not designed for patients like Robert. And Robert is not alone. In the US alone, there's over 10 million patients with these rare diseases that there's no way for us to help them. In total, there's over 7,000 of this. You can imagine so many different diseases. How can we help? And thus, the government way of funding from top down is very, very hard to fund these diseases in the long tail. And thus, only 3% of these diseases have any type of therapy at all. So most of these patients wander from hospital to hospital, like the two examples I gave. So we decided, how can we help Robert? And the good and exciting news is we can. With advances in the internet, the drop in the price of biotechnology, we have now the ability to help patients like Robert. What do? The first thing we do is we leverage the finest, the best research technology available. The one we use for Robert is DNA sequencing. Like the Human Genome Project, we're doing it just for Robert. Second, we find the world's best researchers. Right now, we have over 15 institutions. For Robert, we found Johns Hopkins and Baylor College of Medicine, who are willing to do a research project just for him, sequencing his genome. Then how do we fund this? So we've created an online platform like Kickstarter where friends and families can come and give and be able to fund this research. And because the price of technology has dropped so quickly, that it is now feasible for patients gathering together to fund research that was once incomprehensible 10 years ago. For Robert, we raised a total of $7,700 coming from aunts, uncles, parents, neighbors, getting together. And the amazing thing is, it was from 169 people, each giving less than $50 each. So what's amazing now is Robert, instead of being an orphan disease patient wandering from hospital to hospital, we have the world's best researchers doing the world's best research, funding from Robert's friends and family. And that is something that we're really, really excited about. But we're not stopping there. We're not only helping Robert, we're helping Luke. We're helping Kathleen. In the same way, we're helping David. In the same way, we're helping Salah. And we will not stop fighting until every single one of the millions of kids and patients in the US and in the world have a cure and a therapy for their disease. Because at Rare Genomics, we want to create a whole groundswell of new research, new cures that will be able to rival and cure anything that the government can provide. And ultimately, we will not stop, because every disease deserves a therapy, no matter how few patients are affected, no matter how rare. Thank you very much.